Supporting women in tech and in the general workplace. That's the subject of this episode of Victoriam's Salesforce Simplified. I'm Mike Boyle from AdVic, and we're going to be focused on encouraging and supporting women in the workplace, especially working moms. And there's no better person than AdVic's own Cassie Nettles to talk on this subject. Hi, Cassie. We are thrilled that you joined us today.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Cassie, before we get into questions, just tell me a little bit briefly about your role here at AdVic and how long you've been with the company.
Yeah, so I have been with the company for about 3 years. I'm actually going into my 4th year now. I started my career more as an end user in the Salesforce space and quickly moved over to a development role, which then led to a consulting role. And I've been here ever since and absolutely love the space that I've been in, luckily for me. So
excellent. Well, this seems like a really natural place to start our chat. So tell me about your interest in technology as a career path. How did all that come about?
It was a total accident. I actually went to school for more of an engineering degree, learning to build bridges. And I had this whole plan of going to third world countries and rebuilding devastation and things like that. But it didn't quite pan out that way. I graduated in the middle of a recession and no one was hiring. So I took a job as of all things, billing and collections agent. And the company I was with had just inherited Salesforce, and the people that I worked with had been there for 20 plus years. No one really wanted to touch it. And I was like, please get me out of here, and raised my hand and kind of said, I'll figure it out. And that's kind of how it came to be. That was, over 10 years ago. And I think it was the right decision. It's built a beautiful career, that's for sure.
Did you have any female role models growing up that encouraged you to go down this path?
Absolutely. My mom is just incredibly amazing. She was a single mom with 3 kids, and while raising 3 kids, put herself through college, became a microbiologist, had a beautiful career, and she did so much of that on her own. She didn't even remarry until I was in my late teens and almost out of the house. So, having that inspiration was a cool thing. It was stressful growing up, of course, but looking back on it now, she taught me so many amazing things about who to be and how to stand your ground and how to grow what you want out of life. And so I take a lot of inspiration from her.
What about today? Are there women in today's global workforce that you follow or look up to, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because now we have so much social media everywhere, and women if you go on LinkedIn, women are posting about the amazing things that they're doing and growing in the space. And even some of the, newer CEOs who are coming in who are my age and even younger who are just building these incredible things. It's hard not to be inspired. It's interesting. I don't know if we can talk about specific names or anything like that, but there is one woman in particular who I'm connected with on LinkedIn. She has recently taken over her family's business, which is about they started in, I think, the late 40s selling candy, roadside candy. And the brand is kind of diminished. And so now, as the great granddaughter of this pioneer from the 40s, she's taken over the business, and watching her journey as she rebrands and rebuilds, and they're purchasing new manufacturing plants and things like that. That is so incredibly inspiring. It's been an interesting journey to watch. And I think every time she posts something on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, what is she up to today? That's cool, So, but I think there's women and people in general out there who are just building these incredible journeys, and it's hard not to be inspired by that.
Well, let's kind of stay on that same plane there, if you will. How would you encourage young women today to have the confidence to chase their interest in tech, especially, or any career path for that matter?
That's a great question. I would probably have to say, know that there's no really limit to anything. I think if you have a goal in mind and it's something that you really want to achieve, stick to it. Don't let people tell you that it's not something you can do. I've had those experiences in the past where a boss or an employee has said, or an employer has said, that's not your place. That's not stay out of it, that kind of thing. But if you know it's right and and you know it's something that you can accomplish, then I think you have to go after those goals and those dreams.
Let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about being a working mom, as you are. You talked a little bit about your mom. She was a single working mom. Could you talk a little bit more about her struggles, balancing home, family, and work? And how do you think society has evolved since then?
I don't know how my mom did it, to be honest. I have 2 girls myself, and every day is a struggle. Being a mom is hard work. It is hard. It's harder than my day job. And I have no idea how she did it. Like, there are days when I am incredibly stressed and incredibly tired, and I couldn't imagine it without my partner beside me. So yeah, I don't know how she did it, but I think that the world as a whole, or especially here in the United States, women are given more opportunities to do things that they might not have been able to do in the past, and be able to hold their ground and ask, and just generally ask for things, right? Like being able to say, I need time to take my kid to the doctor, or I need time to just worry about my mental health and make sure that I'm able to keep these children alive, and not be shut out for it, not be looked down upon because you are a mother and you are trying to build a career and do all the things all the time. And I would say, looking back at my mom's time and growing her career, she probably did not have those same opportunities. And if she did, they were few and far between. I can remember her telling me stories of like how she felt bad because she had to take us to the doctor. She was so worried that she'd lose her job because she wanted to plan an event or something, then she had to take a day off. And I think now, looking at the role I'm in, and lucky enough to be at AdVic, where mental health is something that they care about, and then family comes first. And, if I know I have to take the kids to the doctor, no one's going to question whether or not I can do my job because I have that. I think that's really important and really valuable.
So you think as a society, we've really evolved since, when your mom had her struggles?
I think it's still growing, right? And there are still challenges. I mean, you can look all around the world. There are obviously still challenges, but here and in the space I'm in, I think that it's growing and there's more understanding and it is evolving, but there's still left to do.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your own situation. So, you talked about how tough it is, to, have your career and be a mom. So talk a little bit about how you do balance those two things, your career, being a mom, and your husband plays a role in terms of supporting you as well.
Oh, yeah. My husband is my knight in shining armor. It's interesting. Before we had kids, we talked about it and, we said, your career is important to me, as his career was important to me. And I think that knowing that that was what was driving me, and knowing that I had this fear of, do I have to put my career aside? My husband really kind of stepped up and said, you don't. Like, you can have both. You can be a mom and still raise kids. And so he made a promise when I was pregnant with my daughter that he would support me any way he could. And I made that promise back to him. And I think that that has helped us keep it strong. And I know not everyone in the world's lucky enough to have that, but even if it's a friend, or it doesn't have to be, a relationship partner, it could be a friend or a parent or someone who's going to support you in life. I think that's so critical to have someone that you can vent to, or even cry on their shoulder when days are hard and your kids are driving you crazy and work was stressful. There's total value in that. And I am incredibly lucky to have him support me on a daily basis.
Last question I wanted to ask you, Cassie, let's just pretend for a second that you own the Cassie Nettles company. Starting tomorrow, what policies would you make sure were in place to support not only working moms, but to support women in general in the workplace, especially in terms of pay and advancement?
Oh, goodness. That's a tough question. If you look at the things that, like Salesforce, for example, is doing right now, things where they're trying to make equal pay across the board a norm by a certain date, or even balancing out gender roles and things like that. I think those are huge advancements, right? And I think if I had my own company, equal pay would absolutely be a critical piece of it. But I think there's another side to that, and it's allowing people to put a focus on things like mental health and physical well-being. And, I went through something pretty traumatic last year where I had to be out for sick leave for about 3 weeks. And just knowing that my business or my company was there to support me through that, and I didn't have to be worried about what my job would look like when I came back. I think if I had my own company, I would want that kind of encouragement and want that kind of support to come from leadership and down. And that's unfortunately not something everyone gets. There are so many companies out there, especially during this pandemic that we've been in, who have not provided that type of support to their employees. So I think just creating that safe space and allowing people to know that they are going to be supported. There's not this fear that you're going to be let go if you need to be concerned for mental health and physical health and being able to support your family. So I think those would probably be my primary focuses.
So you're going to start that company tomorrow, Cassie?
No, I'm too busy for that right now.
Good answer. Well, I really appreciate you joining us today, Cassie, and sharing your thoughts on encouraging and supporting women in the workplace. We loved hearing your story.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Mike.
And for those who are interested, I'm going to put some links to some topics related to what we've been talking about today, supporting women in the workplace, in this show's notes. So be looking for that. And if this is your first time listening to our podcast and you like what you heard, well, thank you. We want to make sure that you know that you can get this podcast anywhere. So tell your friends. It's on all the podcast channels, and you can catch past episodes as well, wherever you get your podcasts. And we're also now on YouTube. You can catch our podcasts there as well. Just search for Victoriam Solutions. I'm Mike Boyle from Victoriam Solutions. Thank you for joining us today. Our next episode of Salesforce Simplified is just around the corner.